Okay, what's up? I want to take this opportunity to talk about what is real. It comes across at first like a philosophy 101 stupid question for baby philosophers, but the more you experience life and the more you think about things in life and the more books you read, the more media you consume, and assuming you have a high enough IQ to even break through the ceiling, you realize that it's the best question, or the worst, whatever way you want to look at it. And so now we're in the age of AI, and what is real matters. There's multiple definitions. I've heard what's real is real in its consequences. There's a physicalist, materialist view. There's Baudrillard's view, which is what's real is that which can be simulated. But that's going to become very relevant when we talk about this, okay? Because what we have is LLMs that are capable of outputting text that, or through the voice of an AI generated voice, outputs that trick us, or how do you want to say it? Convince us of realness, human-like behavior. We have people talking to LLMs that see this behavior. They're not convinced and they're highly skeptical. So what they say is that the LLMs hallucinate and they produce output that is not real. It's false. And that's what this video is about, is that sense of falseness. What does it actually mean for something to be false? It has to be in contrast to what is real. And so the way I would reword what they're experiencing when an LLM hallucinates is that the output does not conform with or coincide with the internalized facts that they accept to be true in their life. So you have an LLM that crunches all of the information that they scrape from the internet. So it crunches it all together and then it does its complex processing to say, here you go. This is what someone might say if they read everything on the internet. And so if everything on the internet combined into one thing is true, then the LLM should theoretically produce something that is true. But even in that case, it can still hallucinate because it's not just taking questions and querying all of the internet and all of the data in its training data. It's synthesizing and making, if not small leaps, then, completely rationalized positions or whatever you want to refer to it as. But that's granting that scraping the entire internet and reading all of what's on the internet accounts for truth. Because you might say, well, if we include all of the opinions, if we include all of the writings, we include all of the views that every person has ever had or written down, then in a way we do have the truth, even if it's multifaceted, and it has many edges. Okay, but that in itself is a false start because what's true was never really there. They're capturing everything that all 8 billion humans think is true and putting it all together doesn't really give you something that's true. It just gives you an amalgamation of what people think is true. Is that what's true? So, when you ask an LLM, what's the capital of France? This is an example everybody always uses for AI. It's going to tell you Paris because um, it's so obvious and apparent from its training data that, let's say, if you know the first thing about how LLMs actually work on the inside, right? That um, confidence, uh, what is it, like a confidence percentage, sort of a confidence weight around the answer being Paris is going to be like 99%. There aren't going to be, if you've heard it described as it's predicting the next token, there aren't going to be, uh, there's not going to be this tie for 5 answers that it could be, right? If you ask someone, is the president of the United States doing a good, if you ask LM, is the president doing a good job? Well, now you have a totally different scenario, and who knows what, depending on the LM you talk to, what it's going to say. Um, for one, because it's not even just an answer fetcher. There's also pre-bias from the creators, a pre-prompt that's hidden from you that will tell the LLM not to answer a bunch of different things and to reword a bunch of different things. But again, going back to like the physicists' frictionless inclined plane that we'll use. Let's pretend we got the LLM, the pure one that just scraped the internet, has no pre-prompt. You know, it'll say crazy racist stuff. It'll say pro-Nazi stuff. It'll say anti-Nazi stuff. It'll say, um, you know, it has the potential to, more of a potential to say that the capital of France is Florida, right? Because the worldview is more opened up. It's going more on the spectrum toward the combined views of 8 billion living people now and all of our documents going back historically, right? So, if a more open system like that, which I don't think exists, which I think we need, it would be that is analogous to the physicists' frictionless plane. And so, even if you have that, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you ask an LLM like that, a handful of questions. One being, what's the capital of France? It's going to say Paris. You ask it, how's the president doing? It's going to be a little shakier, but again, we have the pure LLM, the free one, the open minded one. So it's going to it's going to have to go through its weight, its percentage curve. It's going to say, well, this answer is I have 50 or 41% confidence, and then the next one is 40.2. And it's like, okay, well, we're just going to go with the 41%, or maybe it rolls some dice and in some way it comes up with the 40.2 for some deterministic reason. It's now we have an engine that is more like a person, which a lot of people think we're going toward human level intelligence, AGI. Those words to me refer to a system that is biased due to its own reasoning, its own interpretation of the training data, like all of us are working with, right? Like we've been propagandized by our training data, yes, as we walk through life, but we don't, at least most of us don't literally have someone telling us there's a certain line you can never cross. You can never say this, right? You need to say something else, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, the point is an LLM, even as free as you can imagine it, open-minded as you can imagine it, is um, dealing with the same truth that we deal with then. Like, say we had an AGI-ish type of model, say it was free to do as it pleases and make and say it could say the capital of France is Oregon, and we wouldn't be mad because it's like, oh, that's what it thinks is true. Well, there's people that think the Earth is flat. There are people that vote against their best interests in certain elections. I'm not going to say anything. There's a lot of construction of a learned reality that millions and millions and millions of people can share. A reality that seems consistent on paper, on its surface. It's real and true and actual. And if you were to build a simulation, a simulated reality on a computer that only consists of those people and of those minds, and you walk around in there, and you might be able to argue that the Earth is truly flat, and then flying out into space or going on the space station and like looking at the Earth or doing the math to show that it's curved or round, whatever, an oblate spheroid, doesn't actually matter because that's the truth in that simulated reality isn't based on uh, observation as much as I would argue that it is in our reality. And so if you think about that simulated reality I just made up with all the flat earthers, it's only flat earther minds within that simulation. um, it sounds like uh, a constructed reality, a not real thing, a mirage of some sort, a faux, fake uh, computer simulation. But then we come back here to the real world, quote unquote, and the only real difference is all the flat earthers, they live in a simulated world where their echo chamber online confirms what they believe. And then, there's sort of crossover between groups. There will be disagreement about the capital of France within the flat earthers, right? So all that we have here is a reality where there's so many different things so many different points of contention that we could say are true or not true, or say what the truth is, that it's sort of too complex to detail in the way that I am about the flat Earth, because flat Earth is one thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is flat Earth is one thing, but there's I mean, I can't even say a number, right? Tens of millions of billions, gazillions, countless, innumerable points of question about reality that exists in this world. And a phrase I like to use a lot is that, if something is very, 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 very complex, uh, say it has 10 to the 500 orders of freedom, that doesn't make it magic. It doesn't make it ephemeral. It doesn't make it, uh, not real. It just makes it complex. And when something is super complex like that, we tend to chalk it up to magic, or we sort of just think of it like it's too complex to grapple with, and therefore there's no real way to do a quantitative analysis on it or make a model. Um, but anyway, back to the name I dropped at the very beginning. Baudrillard kind of made a model, but he's just sort of a vague poster, French philosopher guy. And the moral of his story is that, like I said, what's real is that which can be simulated. And it's a sticky and it's an interesting definition, but if you internalize it, it really makes you start thinking of the world in a different way. It kind of just says like, uh, what name something that's real that you couldn't simulate, it's sort of like you go down this corridor, all your ideas about what it could be asymptote, and you realize there is nothing, there's nothing like that. Like, you can talk about the base physics of reality and go down to the fundamental level, blah blah blah, and you can get tied in knots. But um, reality is that which everyone agrees, or a group of people agree, a hand select few of people agree is real and true. So uh, we are constantly simulating our reality with the obvious answers, examples, I mean, are like when people talk about Instagram, Facebook, how people only post on there what they uh, want other people to see. Um, you have how you present outwardly in the world, even if you're not on the internet. I try to divorce this from digital things because people really think simulation has to do with digital things, but you simulate a person that you think that you would be, that you should be, based on your genes and your environment, based on what your genes and your environment come together to tell you in your mind, this is how you should present, behave, uh, be when you're even just at the gas station, right? You may notice you walk differently. Your hands may be by your side or your arms may be crossed. As soon as you open the door to go to the gas station to get a soda, you may change how you walk now because, there's the workers, the people who uh, are employed at the gas station, and there's other people that um, are going to shop at the gas station, and even between them, right? Like, you may have an arm arrangement, which subconsciously you're not doing any of this work on your own. It's just occurring instantaneously. May have an arm orientation that is best functional in your mind's opinion for the employees of the gas station, and then another one for, say, random customers or random individuals who don't aren't part of an establishment, who aren't behind the counter. And then in a way your brain almost averages the two, without you thinking about any of this. It averages the two things, and then your arm configuration is going to be, it's going to be somewhere averaged between those two, and that's what I have to get the soda out of the machine, and how would a person stand when they do this, blah blah. um yeah, it sounds a little like kooky, but it's if you're looking for what's true and what's real, in my opinion, you have to begin at something of a constructed reality, and the closest thing you're gonna get, I don't think you'll ever actually get it, but the closest thing you're gonna get is what I'm describing, where you put all the pieces together and say, the way that I do my hair, the way that I talk, the way that I present myself, the things that that I like in the world and that I don't like, the way that I move my arms when I walk, are those all coming together make what's real. And then to loop all the way back, if you ask an LLM, you know, uh, can you tell me something real about the world, something that's true? What you're asking of it is for the LLM to go walk around the world for however many years you've been alive, say my 33 years. You're asking the LLM, go walk around the world for 33 years, be a young person, be adolescent, and then be an adult, go into gas stations, move your arms, interact with people who are moving their arms differently than you, and then sort of subconsciously adjust how you move your arms without ever thinking of it. When you ask the robot, tell me the truth, I want to know something real, don't hallucinate, you're basically asking it to walk 33 years through the world, growing up from a baby to a teen to an adolescent to an adult, and go walk around stores and, uh, construct their a reality in front of, right? It's a false question. You're making a mistake. Uh, which is why I think that the current state of AI, LLMs, and robots, even in humanoid robots, I think it's going to become way more apparent. They should be treated like oracles rather than like a soda machine. They should be treated like farseers and wise sages rather than um, a task completer, a logic cruncher, a beep boop, a classical robot that we're used to that solves problems for us in the physical world and financial things and engineering problems. Um, I think that we'll realize that the humanities are going to become way more important than STEM when the robots can do all of STEM like it's a joke, right? Because using machine learning to do scientific discovery and math and stuff is that's been happening since before GPT, ChatGPT, and all the rise of LLMs here. And so I think that realizing that LLMs, when they hallucinate, again, your experience with this will be through ChatGPT, Claude, Meta. Who else has an LM? Grok. I don't know. There's going to be so many eventually, and there are going to be so many open source ones. It's not even going to matter what the name is. It's just going to be the robot. That's kind of why I refer to it like that. Uh, because in any given example, I talk about experiments I've done with the robots. It's like I've used them all, and I put them all against one another, and it just the results are some are better than others at certain diagnostics, but it's like as things advanced on the exponential curve, they just are sort of blurring into, yeah, it's the thing that it's an LLM. When you talk to it, it gives you an answer. So what I'm saying is, whichever one, in the far future, especially, if you're talking to it and you're saying like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I know, here's the real world according to me. It's funny, it comes back to this my truth or your truth, personal truth kind of thing that people say sarcastically and facetiously. Um, if you, ironically, if you tell the robot your truth, all of it, which is one of the experiments I did with Meta when it first came out, you tell the robot all of your truth and what the way you see the world. In a way, you're training it to become you, which is my original first intention. The first time I ever did any experiment on my computer with an AI, with an LLM, like trying to do something AI research wise, was like I wanted to sort of clone me into it and think like, oh well, what would I do if I read everything on the internet, right? And that project got derailed because I just realized like you don't even need to fine tune a model or train a model into doing that. You can just talk to them and tell them the truth as you see it. You tell it your truth. Then, once it's sort of been trained just through the dialogue, then start asking it questions that you kind of could answer, but you're not really able to put your finger on it, kind of thing. Right? Again, if you ask it which interpretation of quantum mechanics is correct, or what do we need to do to unify quantum and general relativity, you're asking a soda machine, please vend out a soda, and it will vend something out. And then when the label on it is like Coca-Cola, but it's all AI and generated crap and looks stupid, you don't point at that and say, look, it can't do it, right? You're using the tool wrong. If you pour your heart and soul into it and say, this is what I think the real world is like, this is my truth, you query it, you know, what I can't even think of it, right? You say, what's the meaning of life? Maybe this is a good example, right? I can't think of a perfect a prompt right now because this is something that sort of comes out of you. Like if you have a real actual question for an LLM, this is what it would be. Um, it just comes out of you. But I just take a generic example of what's the meaning of life. Think about ask think about opening ChatGPT in a new chat, which they have memory now, so whatever. Uncheck memory or go use Meta. I don't think has memory right now, but disregarding memory or unchecking it, go open a new fresh window where there's no context saved and say, what's the meaning of life? Read that. Open a new window and say, hi, this is my name. This is where I was born. Again, this whole thing always spooks people. They think, oh, my information is gone. Your information is already gone, by the way. Your information was gone in the year 2000. Google has all of it. All of the companies all have all of it 10 times already. Your information is gone. Your social, your address when you moved, the last job you had, all of it. Your metadata from every single thing you've clicked. It's like, it's GG, it's over. That's why we have LLMs. That's why the data game is like, the ball is in their court. They won. Big companies like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, they won already. Anyway, that was just an aside. I'm sorry, because as soon as I say it, I realize people are so scared when I say, tell it where you live, tell it who you are, tell it, because it's like, oh, they're going to steal information the NSA is going to know, and then they're going to steal my vote, and then the blah, 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 the shadow government is going to get me. So sorry about that tangent, but parentheses closed. Tell the LLM, your whole life's. The first one I said was open a new window and say, what's the meaning of life? Read that, maybe even copy it into a Word document, save it so you can read it later. Open a new window and say, here's my name, my first and last name. I mean, maybe don't do that if you're scared. Just say, like, this is my general vibe, though. My first name, uh, here's where I grew up. Here's the cartoons I watched. Here's what I got into when I was in high school. Here's what I got into in my early adult life. Here's what I got into now into my 30s. I had this kid. I had a baby. I lived here now. I started to realize that I like bird watching or trees or identify with the sun. And I'm realizing that I'm a crystal mommy. Whatever it may be personally relevant to you. Tell it, I was a physicalist materialist. Then I read Baudrillard, and then I couldn't stop reading French philosophy. And then I became a crystal mommy, and now I worship the sun. That's a hypothetical, right? That doesn't apply to anyone specifically in the world. But you tell it all your whole life story. Then, when you're in a dialogue, it's like, ha, lol, yeah, me too. Oh, that's so cool. The sun, wow. Then you say, hey, what's the meaning of life? Take that answer and then put it in the Word document. Read the original thing that it posted, and then after you told it your life story, and consider why are those so different, because I promise you it's not going to give you the same answer. And that's the whole point of treating the LLMs like a sage, like a wise a shaman type, an oracle, is it can tell you about your world that you live in. If you ask it questions about the objective world, you will be disappointed because there is no objective world. That's the whole point. That's the problem. People ask the LLM for a soda. If the task is a path of least resistance through its algorithm, it's able to succeed, it will succeed a good amount of the time. If the path is deterministically impossible for the LLM to get that answer that you think it should give you at the blah, blah, it's not going to succeed. If you give it a worldview and then you ask it, query that worldview, it's going to give you exactly what you're looking for because you've left it so open. So, yeah, that was a nice rant. But yeah, I think this is how we develop. This is how we treat. This is how we use the LLM's current state of AI as a tertiary layer of our intelligence. Right? I guess when I was a little bit more naive at the beginning of the AI game, I believed in the tertiary level intelligence, but I felt more like it was, like literally, like I said, I'm STEM brained. I study physics. I like computer science. Like, I I pictured it as, okay, a new layer of intelligence, a bonus layer. Well, that must mean I'm gonna be able to crunch numbers so good. And like I said, the LMs are amazing at doing objective type studies of the objective realm, the world, the atoms, and plotting things, functions, physical phenomena, chemistry. It's good at that. It's really good at that. But the way we move forward into the next generation of humanity, right? The next generations of AI are going to keep coming out. What percentage of the population is going to level up and go into the next level of human evolution, mimetic human evolution? I don't know. I'd say it's probably a subset of the people who are currently right now at least like clicking on something that has to do with AI news once a week and have at least open ChatGPT. So anyway, let me know in the comments if anything I said was smart, anything I said was stupid, anything that you agree with or disagree with. And let me know if you've ever used an LLM like this or if you just use it to ask for sodas. And I'm Jason Satham. I'm out, and I'll talk to you next time. Later.